Hey, Addy, I think we need our own synthwave music. What do you think? Like, it
Yeah.
seems to be like all the cool kids have their own synthwave on
Yes.
on the intro. I mean, we're using the standard kind of StreamYard intro in
Yeah.
there,
We
and I,
need our own intro. Yeah, you're right.
yeah,
We do need our own intro, I think.
a lot of people do those first generation graphics with the converging lines and the mountains that go by, and
Hmm.
weird kind of pastel colors and stuff. It's
Yeah. I'll
um
see if I can cook something up this week for an intro.
yeah.
I should have some time. Yeah. I switched, Peter, recently to Adobe Premiere Pro. So I'm a big boy now because I was
Okay,
using Premiere Elements before.
I love me Premiere Pro, which reminds me that I should be quitting Photoshop right now because it takes up a lot of memory and it makes the StreamYard not work so well. So thank you for reminding
Yes.
me. That's gone now. And make
Yes.
sure that my backup is not running right now. Nope, the backup is not running right now. So
And we
that's
have a
all.
great show tonight. We got Ryan Dawson's going to be joining us at some point.
The Rye
Unless
Dog.
something, the Rye Dog, unless something comes up on his end.
Yeah.
He's obviously got little ones, so those take precedence, unfortunately.
And
Or fortunately.
he's gonna be jumping in from. So did you give him a link and stuff?
Yeah, I sent him one, so
All right,
he
great.
should be joining when ready. Going to be talking Brunel's death, another waypoint in the Epstein saga. I'm calling it Act 3, Scene 3, Brunel's death.
Yeah, and
And
it's interesting because Brunel has been like, because of my like weird hybrid past. I was a fashion photographer in the 1980s. Brunel was actually kind of a significant villain back then. And so when his name started popping up in the news a few years ago, I was kind of shocked and pleased all at the same time, just because I know that there's a lot of models who had problems with him that would certainly have wanted him to get his comeuppance, and
yeah,
that was a fairly, before the internet. It was kind of funny because I used to say that the world's fat. This is, again, I was not a tech guy at the time. I was a computer science major in college. I dropped out of college to be a fashion photographer. I was dealing with film and chemicals and all these other things, but not a lot. The only thing electric was my flashes that went pop. And but it seemed to me that the fastest form of communication on the planet was the model dressing room. And the reason is because the models all talk to their agents, and their agents are all talking to each other. And the agencies are in London, Paris, New York, Los Angeles, Tokyo, Madrid, places like that. And so the agencies are all talking to each other. And so I'd come into work in the morning, and my studio is in North Hollywood, and the girls would be sitting there talking about what happened in Paris and London yesterday, because the world's fastest communication network was the model dressing room. And Jean-Luc's name was a name that came up a lot because there were a lot of women had really, really bad stories to tell about him. So he was somewhat notorious, and this was 85, 86, so significantly longer period of time than is normally reported.
right. And I wrote I did a write up on it. It was that was yesterday. Time has been slowing down. I don't know. It's weird, man. There's just like a lot of stuff going on recently. But there is this in 1988 they did a 60 minutes piece on Jean-Luc Brunel where Diane Sawyer
Uh-huh.
interviewed a few of the models. So I wanted to bring up that video here so we can see it.
Yeah, yeah. It's weird because it was kind of a, what's the word? All right, I can bring that up, and then I'll do my thing. That's Eileen. That's the grande dame.
Karen Models, one of the largest and most prestigious agencies in the country. His name is Jean-Luc Brunel. The girls told us Brunel is very careful about the models who are under the protection of Eileen Ford. But Courtney and Sherry, who are not Ford models, told us about the dinners he invites his other girls to attend. with his male friends.
It's a meat market. You are there for the purpose of somebody wanting to take you home to bed. He is acting as a matchmaker. He's got the agency. He's got the girls. His friends say, oh, Jean-Luc, I'd like to meet some girls, or we're having a party tonight. Can you bring some girls?
And what happens if you say no?
You don't work.
But one man Eileen Ford does associate with in Paris is this man, the head of...
Yeah, so there you go.
No, but were they going to cut to Johnny Casablancas? Was that the next person that she does associate with is Johnny Casablancas? Because there's several books on this. There was a lot of intrigue in the 1980s, but when I lived in Milan, I would say, I don't know, a third of the modeling agencies were owned by playboys, which is and it was kind of prevalent in Europe in the 1980s that if you were a wealthy guy, if you were an Arab sheikh, or if you were the billionaire scion of a dynasty, a lot of times what these guys would do is that they'd buddy up with somebody like Jean-Luc Brunel, and then they would finance their modeling agency, and ostensibly for the idea of providing these guys with companions. And the way that it would manifest itself usually is that they would be throwing parties or dinner parties every night, right? So you take a farm girl from the United States, you tell her that everything will be taken care of when she gets to Europe. She doesn't need any money. They put them in a model apartment, which usually has bunk beds. I think that Jean-Luc Brunel had one of his bedrooms turned into a model apartment. So there were like 4 bunk beds in one bedroom in his apartment. It was something like that. People can fact check me on that. And then what would happen is that they get over there, they didn't have any money, and if they wanted to eat, they would be told that if they go to a party, that there'll be all the food that they can eat. And of course, there was food there, but there was almost always drugs and too much liquor and all kinds of other things going on. So that was pretty well known when I was in Europe. And the fact is that the girls who I understand a certain amount of the argument about. I have to be very careful here about the way that I phrase this. There are women out there in the world who understand this system, and they understand that this is the system when they go into it. And they go in there in a very kind of predatory way because they want to take advantage of the system to the maximum extent possible. And that's where things get confusing, because then you have a lot of innocent women who don't understand that these things are going on, and when they're thrown into these kind of situations, then it becomes very confusing and dangerous and not good. So it becomes confusing from the outside to kind of like look at this and analyze it, because there are different motivations. I mean, Epstein was accused of recruiting and trafficking all these women, but I can tell you from experience that there is a percentage, of the women who get involved in this who know exactly what it is that they're getting involved with, because they see it as a ticket out of wherever it is that they are. So I knew a model who was held against her will in Turkey and drew black. Thankfully, she eventually escaped. Look, I met models who were booked onto trips, perfume campaign, a set of identical twins that were invited to be models on a perfume campaign that was going to be shot on a 500-foot yacht owned by some sheikh, and they get on the boat and they go out into the Mediterranean, and the sheikh doesn't feel like going back, and they're just on the boat. They're being provided caviar and cocaine, as much caviar, champagne, and cocaine as they want. But they don't want to, but didn't want to take them back. And, once you're out into international waters and you don't have any wherewithal, you're basically you're trapped. And so that was going on a lot, I think, in the 1980s. I'm not sure that it's not going on now, but that was always a warning. And a lot of agents, you know, it's a weird business. That's all I can say.
What were you gonna say?
Well, I was just going to say that a lot of agents that there's a lot of legitimate agents, and then there's a lot of agents who kind of operate in the gray zones where somebody wealthy will approach them and say, you know, I need this, and they may have certain models that they represent that they know that are open to those kinds of deals. And so they approach those people and they let them know, and the agent takes a cut. Usually it's in cash or, you know, in some other kind of remuneration. But that does happen, you know.
Yeah, it's it actually came up. I mentioned it once before, maybe twice. It was actually the very first day of the trial, and I was talking with this older lady. And if people have heard this before, it's relevant to the discussion. We were talking about the victims of the Epstein network and the differences between someone being like 14 or 13 and being like 23 and 24. And this, I can't remember her name. She's like she covered Spanish, or she did like a Spanish media outlet based in New York, and like covered the New York beat, but in Spanish. And she got really upset with me and like thought I was being an apologist. And then she told me to take responsibility for not being vaccinated at the end. And then, well,
here's a story that I've gotten. I might have told this story before, but there was a woman. So before the internet, I would get a job. I would get a catalog, and because of the nature of the modeling business, you would never really know exactly which models were in town at what time. And so we would get these books. I wish I still had them. They'd probably be worth something today. But the modeling agencies, every 90 days or every 6 months, they put out this book, and it had pictures of all of the models that they represented. So there is usually some beauty shots, some body shots, a half a dozen cards. There's a website called the Peter Marlowe Archive, I believe, and Peter Marlowe did a lot of these books and cards for agencies like Elite. And so what I would do is when I got a job, I would go around to each one of the modeling agencies, the ones that the half a dozen that I used, and I would walk into the office and I would say, who's in town, right? And then they would give me cards, and they were about this big. And I would take 2 of each because I would keep one for my file, and then I would put together a stack of cards that I recommended to my client, and then I would deliver those cards to the client. So that was kind of the thing. And so I was regularly going into the modeling agencies all the time to go pick that stuff up. And I liked to maintain like a kind of a one-to-one relationship with the agents because, you know, if they knew you and they liked you, they could pull favors for you. A lot of times getting the accessibility to a model had a lot to do with your relationship with the agent. So I like to, keep my face in those places. And there was this one woman, though, that I noticed that over the course of about a year or year and a half, she was the receptionist at every modeling agency in Los Angeles. And I thought it was really weird because I would go into Elite one day and I would go to pick up some cards. And then, a couple months later, I would be in Nina Blanchard, which was Eileen Ford's partner in Los Angeles. And this woman would be sitting there. And then I would go into another modeling agency a few months later, and she'd be sitting there as a receptionist. And I thought it was very weird because usually the career path is that you get a job as the receptionist at a modeling agency. And then you work your way up. Eventually, they put you on the table. That you meet all of the models. You get to know who everybody is, and then they put you on the table where usually it's like a round table or it's like a bullpen where the agents all sit and they take the phone calls every day and they put everybody together. They put the jobs together with the models. And this woman just kept going from one receptionist job to another receptionist job. Later, I found out she was a madam. And there's no better way to find a supply of beautiful women who are in emotional distress than women who have just been rejected from a modeling agency. So if you assume that you have to be a certain level of good looking in order to be able to walk into the modeling agency to see if they want to represent you, if they tell you no, they don't want to represent you, generally that's a emotionally troubling moment. And if you're sitting there at the front desk of a modeling agency and you're able to capitalize on that, like, oh, honey, it'll be okay. Maybe I can help you out. Maybe I can help you find some work. Then being the receptionist of a modeling agency is actually a highly desirable position. And so it was interesting that I did find out, several years later that she was basically a madam. That's what she was doing.
Wow. Yeah. Did she get in trouble or how did you come to know that?
Because I became friends with a few girls that she was trafficking.
Oh.
Wow. I think that she actually wound up being the woman that turned in. I think she eventually wound up working for Heidi Fleiss, and then was the one who turned Heidi Fleiss in. And what's interesting, is that Heidi Fleiss was working for a woman named Madame Alex in Beverly Hills, and Heidi Fleiss turned Madame Alex in. So the high-profile celebrity madams in Hollywood have a tendency of being backstabbed by their assistants, and then replaced by their assistants. So
it's like the cartel world.
Well, it is the cartel world. It's just the sex trafficking division of the cartel world. It's not separate. It's just a different division.
Right. Yeah. Because I learned that, and Annabelle Hernandez writes about this. Like the cartels basically have a book of actresses and models, some of them famous, that are basically prostitutes for the cartels, like in Central and South America.
Yeah. Hugh asks, Melania, what do you think? I don't know. What do you think? It's like, there's rumors that she was introduced to Trump by Epstein. It's like I said, there are two kinds, basically two kinds of women that I worked with a lot in the business. One are the kind of the naive ones who think that they're just there because they're pretty and that everything is on the up and up. And then there are the other ones who realize that, one model famously said to me that all men are dogs. And that's how she manages what she does. So, you have that. It's not really a spectrum. It's actually kind of more binary. Usually the women all line up on one side or the other. But we're not talking about Epstein or Jean-Luc. I mean, I guess we're talking about Jean-Luc. So Jean-Luc,
this is fascinating, Peter. This is fascinating. You have this experience.
Well, and so if you think about, like, there's this weird kind of recruiting system, right? Farm system. So Jean-Luc Brunel claimed that he discovered Christy Turlington. Christy Turlington was discovered by a guy named Hefner, who runs an agency called Hefner Models in Seattle. Okay, so Jean-Luc Brunel did not discover Christine Turlington. Jean-Luc Brunel claims that he discovered Mila Jovovich. I was standing in Prima Models, which was the modeling agency that first represented Mila Jovovich. When she was 12 years old, she came dragging her mother in, up the stairs. She walked into the modeling agency like a ball of fire, and she said, "Who do I see about being a model?" She knew she wanted to be a model. I took pictures of her. I shot some of the original first pictures of Mila Jovovich. And then another friend of mine, a guy named Lemuel, he shot pictures of her. He showed the Polaroids of the pictures that he shot to Herb Ritz. Herb Ritz asked him if he could have the Polaroid, and he gave Herb Ritz the Polaroid. Then Herb Ritz booked Mila Jovovich for the cover of Lay magazine, which is Italian or French? Lay? French.
It sounds French.
Lay magazine, and he shot her for the cover when she was 12, and he knocked off Jean's Polaroid. That is, he just cribbed it. He just copied the picture. So for Jean-Luc Brunel to claim that he discovered those two models was just BS. So basically what you normally have is you have this farm system. So back in the 80s, the kind of big, I would say, farm girl beauties, Kelly Emberg, who's a good friend of mine, Kim Alexis. These girls they're tall, they're statuesque, they're very American, they're blonde, they got high cheekbones and broad shoulders, and they're thoroughbreds, so that's kind of, Christy Turlington is Rene Russo. They're all what I would refer to as thoroughbreds. They look like, groomed horses or well-bred horses. And they come from everywhere, right? They don't just come from one place. And the United States is a big place. So there are agencies. There are these little mom and pop agencies. There's places like John Robert Powers, and those places are mostly scams. I'm sorry, I just got distracted because George just tweeted something and it just popped up in my face.
Keep going.
So anyway, the agencies get paid and this goes for Eastern Europe too. So when I was a photographer, the Iron Curtain fell. The Soviet Union collapsed, and then there was a huge number of Eastern European girls that were available. That weren't available before that to go into the modeling business. But basically, what happens is that you get a finder's fee if you're an agent if you're an agent in nowhere, you're in Phoenix, Arizona, and you find somebody who is going to wind up being a Vogue cover girl. Then what you do is you make a deal with you become what's called the mother agency, and meaning that you get you get a percentage of the agent fee for every booking that person gets for whatever the term of the contract is. So it might be a year. It might be a year. So you're in Phoenix, Arizona. You find a girl, or Hefner Models in Seattle. They find Christy Turlington. They send Christy Turlington to Paris, and then Hefner gets a percentage, right, of the bookings, right, and Hefner can fact check me on that. I'm pulling this out of 30 years of, I don't know anything directly about Hefner. I'm just using that as an example. But sure. The agencies have some kind of a remuneration agreement with the agencies that they provide talent to. So they go out, they scout the talent, then they provide the talent, they put them on an airplane, they send them off to Paris. And usually they get sent to Paris or Milan because they shoot so many pictures for editorial. They have so many magazines that it's a good place for a model to build their book up. And once they have enough pictures, then they can go to New York or a big catalog market where there's actually lots of kind of grunt work, shooting fashion catalog type pictures. But those things usually provide significant income. And so that's the thing. So it's very easy if you're trafficking, to kind of slip into that ecosystem, because it's basically, it is horse trading in a way. People are going out and finding the best horses, and they're sending the horses off to race.
Sure. And we got a comment here. Melania Trump came out of nowhere, sounded dumb as a rock on those tapes that were released in 2020 by her assistant whining about Christmas, says Hugh. Stevenson. Drew Black says, sorry, I never thought she sounded dumb as a rock. How many languages does she speak, by the way? I think she speaks 4 or 5, doesn't she?
Yeah, I think she speaks several languages. Look, I don't know how dumb you could call her dumb as dumb as whatever it is that you want to call her. She married a billionaire, right? There's a lot of women who would think that marrying a billionaire makes you a genius. You know, so it all depends. I try not to judge people on the same heuristics. There was a famous book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, that I think does a pretty good job of describing the psychological differences in and goals that different people have. And so I would say that if Melania Trump wanted to set herself up to be in a power position and never have to really worry about making ends meet the rest of her life, she's probably one of the smartest people on the planet.
Yeah, it just depends on the framework that you use to measure smartness or intelligence, right? Or geniusness, whatever you want to
Sure.
call
I
it.
mean, usually I see those catty comments are just usually coming from jealousy. But look, there's a fine line between. I'm trying to think of the best way to frame this. There's lots of different reasons that women become models, right? And I kind of like leave men out of it because most of the male models that I made friends with were the few straight male models, and almost all of them were what I call accidental models. So one of my friends was he was a Olympic single scull rower, and he got discovered by Bruce Weber, and he got put on the cover of GQ, and he was on the cover of GQ a few times. He really became a model because somebody pulled him out of a boat and put him on the cover of a magazine. He didn't ever go into a modeling agency saying, "Hey, I want to be a model." I have another friend who was a football player, and he was waiting. He did a training camp at the New England Patriots, and he was waiting to find out whether or not they were going to pick him up or not. And an agent met him on the street in New York and asked him if he wanted to go to the Caribbean for a week to do a cigarette campaign, and it was going to pay $25,000. And he had a big bruise in the center of his chest at that point in time because he had just been tackled really roughly in the training camp. And he started thinking about going and making $25,000 in the Caribbean versus having 350-pound guys drive him into AstroTurf. And he decided that he wanted to go to the Caribbean. So that's how he became a model. So, I've got a few friends who've got stories like that are men, but the male side is significantly different, I think, than the female, because the Bruce Weber is as bad as Jean-Luc. Bruce Weber, there's a lot of creepy stories about Bruce Weber, but mostly they involve taking pictures, and I can understand how you can get that creep moniker. The same thing happens everywhere. Did you ever have any interactions with Madonna? I danced with Madonna once. Who's clicking that?
That was obnoxious.
That was funny. Yes, I was at a club called Helena's, which was a private club that was run by Helena Kalianotis. That club was basically like a recruiting. I would say that it was a model recruiting place for celebrities. And I got made a member of that club, and I was in there one night, and Madonna came in with her choreographer Shabadoo and another guy, and there were not very many people in the club that night. I would say maybe there was a dozen people in the club. It was a private club. It probably only held 100 people. And at one point, Madonna walked into the middle of the dance floor. Nobody was dancing, and she announced very loudly and in a very Madonna-like way. She said, "Does anybody want to dance?" Because she came in there. Apparently, she came in there to work out some routines with her choreographer, and he was too busy talking to whoever he was with. And so I raised my hand like a school kid. And I got up and I danced with Madonna for about 30 seconds.
Nice.
Because
That's awesome.
as soon as I started dancing with Madonna, her choreographer quickly turned around and realized that I was making him look like an ass. And so he jumped up and he as soon as he got out there, I waved goodbye and I sat down. So that was it. That's my Banana story. But once I was in the same club and my Madonna was spinning records. She had her headphones on and she was in front of the turntables, and my friend Craig was kind of drunk. And there was probably only there's Rye Dog. There was probably only half a dozen people in the club that night. And my friend Craig went up to Madonna and started saying, "Do you have any, what's his name? Sitting on the Dock of the Bay." Ryan, who did Sitting on the Dock of the Bay?
I know the song.
Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, what?
Redding.
No. Otis. Otis Redding.
Otis Redding, yeah.
He said, "Do you have any Otis Redding?" And she said, "I like what I'm playing." And he goes, "I want to hear some Otis Redding." And Sean Penn came running across the club and jumped my friend Craig because Craig was yelling at Madonna. And so then my friend Paul came in and we had to pull Craig and Sean Penn apart. It was pretty dumb.
That's crazy. But Ryan Dawson is here.
Ryan Dawson is here.
Yes,
have you ever
I am.
danced with Madonna, Ryan? I don't know if you've danced with Madonna.
My girlfriend did, actually,
Oh, wow.
in Las Vegas. Yeah.
I'm the only one, it seems.
You haven't met Madonna?
I haven't danced with Madonna.
Well, I didn't dance with her, but I
There's
watched her dance.
There's always
I don't know if I
There's
can
always
stand
tomorrow, Addy. There's always tomorrow.
it. Yeah.
Well,
She actually had a, I don't know if it was
Yeah,
on
go ahead.
purpose or not, but a pro-Palestinian clip. She did John Lennon's Imagine, and it was showing all these clips of war and stuff, and a lot of it was the Gaza Strip. I know the images so well. I knew what they were coming from, but she had that in on her concert.
Cool. Sweet.
Mhm.
Yeah, but we were discussing Brunel earlier, the modeling world, the world of models and fashion world, of which Peter has quite a bit of experience he was sharing with us.
Yeah, I was telling Addy that Brunel, when I was a fashion photographer in the 80s, that the world's, before the internet, the fastest form of communication on the planet was the model dressing room. And Brunel had a reputation.
Yeah, expos in the 80s. My mom had 3 clothing stores back in the day.
Yeah.
And you used to have to go to, like, buyers would go to expos in Orlando or New York or Atlanta usually.
Yep.
On the East Coast. And I saw Pamela Anderson there and a whole bunch of pro skaters and stuff like that. But it's coconut wireless, we used to say. It was zipped through. And this whole industry is so perverted. Like, it's disgusting, man.
Well, I was telling some stories to that end, about models getting booked on trips on yachts owned by Arab sheikhs in the Mediterranean and being taken out into the ocean and not taken back for months sometimes.
Oh, they'd make them like eat all this weird stuff and step on the hair and pee on them and just disgusting stuff. Some of these sheikhs, the Khashoggi rape cruise, we used to say.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the models was,
one in LA, you told me a story about Burnell. Do you remember?
Which one?
You've been over it already.
I might have.
When we were in California?
When you were there too. Oh, actually, 3 of us were there. The guy, I just posted a picture of him with his Israeli army hat. It's like, cool hat, bro. It's random. Karen Models starts in Tel Aviv, and then he renamed the branch that was in the U.S. to MC Squared. And then that got renamed to Model Identities in 2019.
Right, and I read someplace that Karen's said that they were distancing themselves from him or something in some press release. But I thought he was one of the founders of Karen's. I thought he started Karen's. So, but
That's what I read, is that he started Karen Models first.
Well, this Israeli guy owns it now, but it was syndicated because MC Squared had the Karen brand name because he had Karens in France and then Karens in the US, and it already was getting bad rep. And you remember Brunel was on 60 Minutes getting reamed by girls. What, late 80s, early 90s?
Well, I was just,
88.
I was doing some research, and there's one model that I know specifically that he had terrible problems with him. She went to Karen's in 1980, so it's taken a long time for this to come out, but he was probably just getting warmed up in 1980. But by 1985, when I started hearing stories about him, there was nothing but bad stories about Jean-Luc coming out of Paris.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I'd heard a lot of those stories where he'd run around 2 other cohorts, and they would spike drinks or just get young girls really liquored up and then take them back to the limo.
But the flip side of that, I mean, I'll never forget. I was in this pensione in Milan, and there was this model that came sobbing back to the hotel because she had like slept with Fabio the night before, and he had moved on to some other woman, and so she was all dejected and stuff. So what I was saying to Addy is that I think that people women who are at a certain age, right, who are still they're kind of transitioning from being children in their head to being these kind of like lust objects, are still trying to struggle with their own identity and how they are defining themselves. And so it makes them very vulnerable, but they're also, kind of a whirlwind of emotion going in both directions. So it's a weird moment.
Yeah. Got a comment here. Peter, I hope you're writing your memoirs. From Hugh Stevenson. Chris Fusco says, nah, he's too busy with his manifesto.
No, I'm just too busy just cataloging books. I've been working on my website, the Duke Report, which is just basically pulling RSS feeds off of everybody. It's interesting. There's so many people who've been banned off social media that actually have websites that actually do post things that I'm just taking. Do you have RSS feeds, Ryan? Do you have something that I can pull RSS from?
I do, but it's like not the main.
Yeah.
So, but I have stuff on Anchor and things. But
anyway, so
you got a Substack too, Ryan, right?
I do have a Substack.
Substack has RSS.
Yeah,
so if you're publishing, if you're, then I can pull off that. Yeah. So basically, I'm just making like a clearinghouse for everybody who's been banned, where you can go to one webpage and just see whatever the last couple of things that they posted are. Because I found that Twitter is just you guys don't, Ryan, you probably, I don't know if you know this.
I just got another Twitter account suspended 3 days ago.
I don't know, but don't you find Twitter is like particularly boring at this point? Like it's almost like not worth looking at.
I mean, I felt like that from day one.
Yeah, well, it's to me, I don't know. I look at my own webpage to try to see what's going on because Twitter seems to be a waste of time at this point. And then what I've also been doing is just because I read a lot of books, I've just been putting links to every book that I've read in the last 5 years on all of the deep state conspiracies and things like that. And I try to not only put a link, because most of the books you can get at Amazon, but not all of them. But they also, almost all of them are available on Scribd, or they're available on the Internet Archive, so there's links to all of that stuff on there. So that's where I've been. Instead of working on my memoir, I've just been working on that because I think Anthony Sutton probably has more important things to say than Peter Duke.
You're not going to move to a cabin in Montana and start typing it out on a typewriter? No.
Uncle Ted.
Yeah. Ted K movies out in theaters.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is it good? Have you seen it?
It won't be out in Japan for a while, but
is it a hit piece or is it legit?
You gotta imagine it's probably a hit piece, but a friend of mine saw it, was like, no, it's not bad for what you'd expect.
Right. Because I saw the Alex Jones, Alex Lee Moyer's Alex's War. I saw that a couple of months ago. I got invited to a screening on that, and that's supposed to drop any day now, and it's pretty good. She did a very good job of kind of like benchmarking things that he said 20 years ago with things that are happening right now. Like he said this and this is happening. He said this and this is happening. It's gonna
5,000 other things that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Alex is a
question.
master of grabbing something that's true and covering it with retard sauce so that it actually gets discredited.
Oh, Alex Jones. Oh, got another comment here. Trump Model Management, later shortened to T Management, was a New York City-based modeling agency founded by Donald Trump as T Models in '99, closed by Trump in April 2017.
Yes, my friend Kelly Amberg was with Trump Models for a minute. Kelly has more Vogue covers, I think, than any model in history.
T for teen, right?
T for teen?
Trump had a teen pageantry for a while. That's where he met a lot.
Oh, that's right.
That's like a magnet for these goons. Some of the future procurers came through that route. They were targeting him hard. I mean, as a billionaire real estate agent, they wanted to have him under their thumb.
Right.
Trump seemed to be into supermodels, but
yeah, he dated my friend Cara Young. Cara Young worked for me, and he dated her for about a year. And when the New York Times was doing their hit piece on me, the reporter wanted to know if he could talk to any of the models that I worked with, and if he asked me if I could get her number, and I said I'd ask her. So I asked her, and I got him her number, and he didn't ask her any questions about me. He only asked her questions about Donald Trump. So
yeah, of course.
So Ford models, Eileen Ford in the video we saw with the 1988 60 Minutes piece with Diane Sawyer. Why was it that Ford models were like protected from Brunel? Because didn't they say that? Do you guys know why? I missed that.
Well, I'm not. Well, there's some pretty good books about what was going on in the 80s. But Eileen Ford basically, I think that she started out wanting to be a model in the 50s and didn't ever really make it. But she wound up basically being a secretary for girls that were working, and eventually she parlayed that into an agency and created her own agency. Of course, I never know what the real story is. This is the common mythology, right? And then she had a scout that was working for her in Paris named Jean Casablancas, and he was representing Eileen Ford in Paris. And then at one point, he and Eileen had some kind of a falling out, or he just decided that he was going to go out on his own, and he started Elite Models and stole a bunch of models from Eileen Ford. And so that started this war, right? There was Johnny Casablancas, really his the thing that he created, and there was all kinds of Johnny Casablancas stories too. I mean, Brunel was not the only one, but I think that Casablancas looked more like George Clooney, so he didn't have the same kind of rep that Brunel had, although he might have been doing the same things. And that is that he rebranded a certain tranche of models, supermodels. He said, "Oh, these are supermodels. These models make $1,500 a day, and they do catalogs. These models make $25,000 a day, and they do perfume campaigns." Right. So there was a separation in the books, right? You would get these model books. Like I said earlier, there's an archive of all of these cards on the internet. It's called the Peter Marlowe Archive, and it's up on a webpage. If I get a second, I'll go find it. But the models were actually separated into different categories. Like, these are supermodels. The girls in the front of the book, the girls in the first 20 pages of the book, they're going to cost you a lot of money. You know, if you don't have a lot of money, just skip to the middle part of the book, because those are the models that you can afford. And Johnny Casablancas was really the guy who kind of started that system of the supermodel system. And so there was all kinds of backstabbing and rumors that were thrown around, and the models were kind of like, torn in between these things because they just wanted to work. I can't remember what your question was, except you're asking me about Eileen Ford. So in New York was Eileen Ford. There was another model who was a German model who started her own agency named Wilhelmina. And then other agencies popped up along the line. Bruce Weber was partners and started his own agency. I believe that was Next, which I always thought was funny, the funniest name for a modeling agency, because if you shoot catalogs, like if you're shooting 20 shots a day, like I would get done shooting a picture and then I'd be ready for the next picture and I would turn to the stylist and I would say next. You know, it was kind of in the catalog business, next was a word that happened a lot. So I thought it was funny when Next models came out. Yeah, Eileen was the grande dame of models, of modeling agencies. She was the person at the top of the pyramid in that business. And so when Johnny Casablanca started Elite, it took some power away from her. But Paris and New York are kind of like where most of the action was happening.
Gotcha. Wow, great stuff there. And you want to talk about your DC trip, Rye? I don't know if you want to plug that because you're coming stateside pretty soon, right?
Yeah, I just want to mention earlier some of the MC Squared models in New York were being housed on property that Mark Epstein acquired, and it was fairly close to the rape mansion that Jeffrey got from Les Wexner.
Yeah, East 66th Street, 301. It's managed by OSA Properties. And there's like connections to like Abaloop, which is Marcin Kova's company, Darren Endyke's companies there. There is, and then as you mentioned, the models were housed there.
Got a picture of Darren coming out of the mansion full of bags. Yeah,
I think that's
what a sleaze. He set up a lot of those Gratitude America and all these little LLCs to move money around for Epstein too. And it's ironic because I don't recall Epstein ever having his bank accounts closed or frozen even after the Hoffenberg scandal at Tower Financial or Bear Stearns. But if you're a Canadian trucker, they'll freeze your bank, but not a pedophile.
Yeah,
the trip to DC. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going there March 2nd to the 6th, and I'm going to someone else's event about the influence of the Israel lobby. And part of the influence of the Israel lobby is this sort of underbelly of blackmail and bribery from these groups. But they'll probably be focusing more on Palestine, Syria, Iran, things like that. But I'm going to hold my own event too. Separate from that, I'm going to screen my newest film about how Israel stole the bomb and then covered it up. And we still have nuclear ambiguity there. I mean, they've got hundreds of nuclear warheads.
Is Angleton in there?
Oh yeah, he's in there. James Jesus Angleton, he gets a beating, but yeah, I mean, Angleton goes all the way up. Angleton and Shackley interlude with the JFK assassins, so that bit of that's in there too, and a bit of Epstein's in there too, because the Sunborn Institute, the kind of the precursor to the mega group. There are a few guys that were alive for both, and Wexner's one.
Bronfman's or another one, Edgar Bronfman, right? Yeah.
Well, the Bronfman, Samuel Bronfman was Edgar's later. Charles was on the line, but no, all the Bronfmans today that were like the NXIVM cult Bronfmans that are like Sarah and Claire are in jail. Edgar's not as involved as Charles, but Samuel Bronfman was deep into this mafia. So, yeah, they kind of clean up after a generation or two and go legit-ish, but then they help finance others. So,
and I think it was
in there.
Here's this model archive I was talking about. It's modelscomposites.com. And these are the books that I was talking about that we used to get. So you get a head sheet like every 90 days or something. And, this would be the models that are in town, that are available to you. And, you go through and pull the cards, deliver the cards to your clients. Of course, I was shooting catalogs. I wasn't trafficking. Well, I guess I was trafficking clothes, But here's Jerry Hall. She's now married to Rupert Murdoch. Here's her page.
Wow.
But she was with Mick Jagger for a long time. London School of Economics, Mick Jagger. So the modelscomposites.com, this is basically the stuff that I used to have to deal with.
Wow.
That's back before you could digitally fix as much.
No, you couldn't. It's interesting too, because shooting, I've shot a couple of fashion jobs in the last 10 years, but not many. And it is completely different, because back in the day, you if something was out of place, you had to stop and fix it. Like, you couldn't go fix it in Photoshop later. So the ability to get things done quickly now is really kind of amazing. And there's all these people who are always. I met Lana Del Rey's sister, Chuck Grant. She was like going on and on to me about how much better film is than digital, and I just, I've shot 200,000 or 300,000 rolls of film in my life. I just kind of roll my eyes in my head, go, "You got to be kidding!" But,
I think it was Richard Kahn that was exiting Ryan, not Indike, because I thought it was Indike too at first. You mean the day after Epstein got whacked, right?
Oh, no, I got him photographed. Both of them.
Oh, it was Indike. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It must have been a different time then.
I mean, I got the map right over there, and I got some photos of the bastards, all the ones that got away with it, so to speak, in there. So there's a lot of them that did get arrested, or had to at least resign from a position or take a step down. They got a little nervous. They've been all of them were sweating except for Andrew. Apparently, he can't do that. He says he basically just paid out about $4 million per rape. The only good thing Epstein ever did was take that picture of Andrew in Virginia. Maxwell's there too. She can see her reflection of the window. It's just like, these people are disgusting, man. He's still trying to deny it too. Even on his settlement, he didn't take any liability. Just like, oh, we're just going to pay this. For what? To make it go away? You're guilty,
what do you
man.
think about that, Ryan? Do you think Virginia got threatened? Virginia Giuffre, Virginia Roberts?
I mean, $16 million is I don't know. He wasn't going to go to jail anyway. So just take it and think of all the people you can help with that much money, The fact that she rejected several settlements in the millions says a lot, but it gets to a point where I don't care who you are. You're like, man, that's my great grandkids will be okay. You know what I mean? Like, just take it.
Sure. Yeah, it was.
He's lost all his positions, his titles, his everything. He can't go anywhere. He's a pedophile prince. Basically, his mom, which means probably British taxpayers indirectly, had to pay out 12 million pounds. That's that's punishment.
Is he technically a prince still?
Prince of pedophiles, I said.
Yeah.
Because he could still get wrapped up in the Nygaard case, because he visited him too.
Right.
All the time. He used to cut his vacation short to go see Nygaard in the Bahamas, and they were drugging and anal raping women. So Nygaard was, at least.
Can you all check your mics?
What the hell? Nygaard's 80? How old's Prince Andrew? He's like
67, right? Am I wrong on that?
Yeah.
Let me see.
What the hell is he doing hanging out with this guy? Like,
oh, I'm sorry. He's only 62.
Yeah, he's like 20 years younger, and just, I'm just gonna go to the Bahamas, not with my wife or kids. I'm just gonna hang out with this random clothing billionaire, just cause. I want to play volleyball really bad. What the hell are you going and staying with Nygaard for? And he's been visiting Epstein routine times.
You think
Nygaard could even weasel his way out of it? Like with Virginia, all right, they didn't say how old she was. Maybe he was, a little bit liquored up. Took her to her house. She seemed to be into it. He did it, and then, oh my God, she's 17. No, because then he went and did it again in New York, and then he went and did it again in Florida. So he knew. It's just like, man, you're a prince. You have all this money. Surely you could just at least find someone of age to cheat on your wife with, or whatever. Like, or pay for it legally or whatever. No, that which says to me like he's doing this with so many kids, and she's just one that he called him, got a photograph of it and called him out on it. I think he just did this all the time. Randy
Do
Amby.
you think Nygaard is gonna go? Is he next on the bullseye for getting a dart?
Yeah, it's a reasonable assumption he's already in prison, and people don't know that this is related to Epstein, but it is to Andrew and several victims. So, he's not going to roll on them or anything, but the guy's basically gotten away with it. He's 80 years old. He did it his whole life, right?
Yeah,
But his financial empire will crumble, and he's still alive. We still could get some justice, but is he gonna roll on people under him? Maybe some of his recruiters, probably not. He'll just end up, I don't know, suicided by bed sheets or something.
Yeah.
Go ahead and put that out there. Nygaard didn't kill himself.
That's the next T-shirt, right?
Yeah, Dershowitz could be a target too for Virginia. I mean, he's also in his 80s,
right?
But I think he's 81.
Yeah, well, I was telling it.
He's like, no, it wasn't me. You're getting me confused with some other old pervert. That was so and so, is what he's saying. Okay.
Yeah, I was telling Addy earlier that when I was living in Milan, there seemed to be a lot of fashion companies and agencies that were specifically spun up by guys who wanted to meet girls. Like the best way, if you had an unlimited amount of money, the best way to supply yourself with women would be to start a fashion company or start a fragrance company, and then buy into a modeling agency, and then start throwing parties every night. And that was just kind of a thing. There were certain clubs where there was a party every night.
Even flip-flops, right? The Reef Girls. They're like, well, flip-flops are called thongs, so we're just going to have our girls wear thongs and wear these flip-flops. And the Reef Girls became like, it was always posters of girls' butts, but they were sort of this staple attraction at a lot of these expos, because a thong was unusual 20 years ago compared to now. And it's like, yeah, you're selling shoes. You still need almost butt-naked models anyway, right?
So here's a story. The Marciano brothers, before they started Guess, had this brand called Chardon jeans, Chardon. And the advertising was on Bus Kings, which are these long, skinny things that go on the sides of buses. And it was a picture of this model who was a friend of mine named Sarita Ojeda. And she had her arms around a guy's leg and her face next to his ass like this.
Mm-hmm.
And the tag of the jeans was like right by her face. And the advertising copy said, "I beg your Chardon." And the reason that they did it was because they knew that taggers, probably hired by them, would go and cross out the C.
Right.
Okay. Because it was hard on jeans.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Thank you, Peter.
What?
I said thank you.
So, anyway, the Marciano brothers and the Marciano brothers actually started Guess because Sassoon, there was Vidal Sassoon, and then there was Sassoon jeans, and Vidal Sassoon sued Sassoon jeans and told them that Vidal Sassoon had the shampoo brand. The Sassoon, these other guys started a brand called Sassoon jeans. Vidal Sassoon sued Sassoon jeans and won. And they weren't allowed to use the name Sassoon anymore. And they had just spent, I think, $20 million building a new factory in Los Angeles to build jeans. And they wound up making a deal with the Marciano brothers, and they made this new brand called Guess. And Guess was the rebrand, because Sassoon was going to go bankrupt if they didn't figure it out. So the Marcianos came in and they made some kind of a leverage buyout of Sassoon. They put all of their money into marketing. They came up with the marketing. Nothing comes between me and my Calvins. Yes, there was a lot of borderline porn in the That was the whole idea in the 80s, was to see how close to porn you could get. And then Terry, what's his name, showed up in the 90s.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. He's the music photographer, aren't you?
No. Terry, come on, help me.
Not Richardson.
Yeah, Terry Richardson? Yeah, Terry Richardson. Terry Richardson, his style is called porn chic. You know, basically flash on camera.
Yeah, I came to know him through music, which is kind of weird because he did this shoot of Odd Future back when I was big into hip hop, and that's like the first time I got exposed to who he was.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I was kind of a dumb shit when I was a photographer because I really thought it was about like your style and how good you were and, you know, your ability to do your job. And it turns out that politics, like everything else, is really important. And
yes,
and there was a reason why porn chic became a big deal in fashion, and that's because they wanted people thinking about porn all the time. They aesthetics didn't have much to do with fashion at that point. So I was kind of lost. I thought it was about aesthetics, and silly me.
Another question here I wanted to address. This is from a man of principles over on Rockfin. Also, shout out Called Priestess for checking in. He says, in answers to the show's title, people who off themselves don't have security cameras turned off. Another question: how do we know? Even though that wasn't a question, how do we know for sure that Brunel's actually dead, much less incarcerated? Dargar, Brunel, and Maxwell never had mug shots taken. If they had, there must be serious censorship preventing their public exposure. Hi, Addy and all. Don't want to be rude.
Yeah, I mean, how do we know any of them are dead, right? What's the old saying is habeas corpus, right? Show me the body.
Okay, sure. You know where I'm going with this? How do you know that the police, when they come to you and say, hey, we found your DNA at a crime scene, like, what do you say to that? Like, how do you be like, oh yeah, I believe you? Like, do you guys know how DNA works? Like DNA, like, how do we know any of these people are telling the truth about anything? Like, even to the point where, like, what is in this? Is this actually water? There's
right.
No nutritional.
Well, and that door swings both ways too, Addy, because in the 90s when Dmitry Alperovich was at McAfee, you know, and they were writing viruses, there were all these viruses that were infecting people's computers. And a lot of times when you went to go remove the virus, what it was doing is it was installing an FTP server on somebody's zombie machine. And then they were using it as a distributed content network for kiddie porn. And so people's machines were getting infected with viruses, and then they were getting kiddie porn put on their machines. And then you see stories about these people who get arrested for having kiddie porn on their machines, and you wonder whether or not they were set up, right? Whether or not, I mean, I'm not a fan of kiddie porn. I'm not a fan of people who consume kiddie porn. But if somebody has kiddie porn on their machine and they didn't know it was there, and they didn't put it there, and the FBI comes and knocks their door down and says, hey, you've got kiddie porn, and puts them away for 20 years or forever. You know, is that a thing? Because it kind of seems to me like it might be a thing.
Well, they caught him at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation with all this kiddie porn, and I guess, I don't know, people at Microsoft wouldn't know how to stop a virus.
Right. Again, I'm not trying to. I'm not
cameras.
Yeah.
And in Europe, they don't film your cell. It's a human rights thing. They film the hallway. That's about it. And there is an investigation into it. We'll see. I mean, is anyone even surprised? Like, before he has any days in court, he's gonna die. Like, everybody knew that.
Right.
And his lawyers are saying, "Oh, it wasn't because of guilt. It's because of the injustice of the system." Bitch, you're
well, it may be the injustice of the
thing.
System if he thought that he was working for the government when he was doing all of those things.
Yeah, there you go. He's like, but I'm Israeli. No, we're not supposed to go to jail.
You know, somebody asked me the other day if I was interested in helping the government, and I said, which government? And And they said
Fair
the only
enough.
one, and they said the only one that counts. And I said, which one is that? And they said the one that could kick your door down and throw you in jail and take your stuff.
What, Canada?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm not sure Canada's got a monopoly on that at this point.
No, they don't. It's just, it's hilarious though that all summer long people were setting buildings on fire and assaulting people, murdered a few people even. That's a mostly peaceful protest. They could just annex like 6 blocks of Seattle, no big deal. But the moment there are people in an actual peaceful protest, all they did is drive trucks somewhere and park. Haven't looted a single store, haven't assaulted anybody, haven't killed anybody, obviously. No arson, nothing like that. They call emergency powers and freeze people's bank accounts and GoFundMe and start arresting people and stealing their fuel and going after their finances. They're going nuts. But you always want to force a dictatorship to act like one. But it's like, what's this over? It's over mandates, right?
Right.
And, it's funny watching the left, which used to at least act like they were for, labor rights and consumer rights and stuff. And now we're all Pfizerites now. They're protecting big pharma and these giant companies on a mandate. It doesn't make any sense either. Even if you believe, if you were like swallowed everything from the panic, truckers are pretty much alone in their truck. There's no reason they needed to take a vaccine that doesn't stop the spread of a disease anyway.
Right.
And it's all about obedience. They're going to say, oh, people are skirting this and they're making fake cards for the vaccine passes. The only solution is to go digital and have digital IDs. That's what the World Economic Forum has been pushing.
So what do you think about this Freedom Convoy USA 2022? That they're planning on being in Washington, D.C. the day of the State of the Union. And that just having been in Washington, D.C. on January 6th and watching that shit show go down, I just wonder whether or not this is just another big setup.
I think it's like, here's a more effective way. Instead of, especially if you're coming from California or something, going across the country for a few days, you don't need a convoy to go yell at buildings. All you have to do is stop trucking. Stay at home, watch a game, whatever, stop working. That would pull everything to a screech. There's cities like New York City only has like 2 or 3 days of supplies.
Right.
They're always getting resupplied on the day. You just don't cross the bridge, don't cross the tunnel, and that would shut that whole city down. All the shelves would be bare. You don't have to drive to DC. All you have to do is not drive at all. So just, on March 1st, whatever, just everybody stay home. Don't deliver. And that would...
So a general strike.
Yeah, just the strike part is what matters. Like if you're in a convoy and you drive somewhere, you're also not delivering your goods, but you're also centralizing your location so they can just round you up and arrest you. Just everybody stay home. That's all you got to do.
Yep. I was thinking. I was also thinking that by continuing to go to Washington, what you're doing is you're acknowledging your masters, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're showing up and you're saying, we have acquiesced our ability to make a decision, and we are on bended knee and begging for you to give us our freedom back. And like that's not how it works.
They're just gonna label you white supremacist. Freeze your bank accounts, go after crypto. Any way they can cripple you, find it. This is all stuff that's personally happened to me. Get labeled a white supremacist, which is such a crock. Which that depersonalizes.
Me too. I'm the Annie Leibovitz of the alt-right.
There you go.
Yeah.
This girl I went to college with, she called me racist against natives.
Yeah.
Which natives? Native Norwegians?
Not those.
God damn it, Peter. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, I went this direction. I climbed the yellow ladder. I'd be a pretty bad white
yellow
supremacist.
ladder. Oh,
The gold ladder, I should say. Gold. Yeah, it's so dumb. So they'll label you some, whatever, racist, sexist, something, because that makes you not a person. And then they kick you off all your social media, and they go after your bank. I can't use PayPal. I can't use Patreon. I can't use any of that stuff. It's just I got one dedicated hater, Gabe Hoffman. He just goes around writing letters to people until they remove you, and that's all it takes is accusation. You don't need evidence. You don't need. I've got like 5,000 videos. I'm militantly anti-racist to all forms of racism, including the whites, which is one that usually doesn't count for some reason.
Yo,
they're like, oh no, you can't do that. What's up?
I want to say something about this. I saw the mayor of New York City. I think his name is Adams. He said, I'm just gonna say it. He said crackers. He said crackers in like a press conference.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't believe my eyes. I was like, what is going on? You know, like it was on like national television, and the mayor of New York City is saying a racial slur, and everyone's just like.
But they're not racists. Only
but they got rid of a mayor of D.C. back in the day for saying niggardly, like the adjective. It
which
sounds like another word,
right?
Yeah, just because of their fucking ignorance and outrage, they're like, well, that word sounds like this other word. You know what it is, so you're gone. And he's like. Look it up in the dictionary. That's not what you think it is. Just for almost sounding like it, almost saying it, you're gone. Another guy could say crackers, and I think he said cracker asses too. Like it was just boasting about it. Nothing's gotta happen. They're talking about in Canada too. You're only allowed to protest if you're not white, which is effectively shuts the whole thing down because Canada is mostly white. That's ridiculous. You're going to exclude somebody based on their biological category. But yeah, that's the plan.
So there was a Give Send Go hack a couple of days ago, and the guy that the guy that was claiming that he's the hacker, Barrett Brown. Are you familiar with Barrett Brown?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Barrett was spurging out on Twitter this morning and talking about how that guy is there were a lot of people on the right that were saying this guy doesn't seem like he's on the up and up. That is, he doesn't really seem like he's legit Antifa. It seems like he's an asset, intelligence asset. And Barrett Brown, coming from whatever his worldview is, was claims that he's got evidence of that this morning. He was tweeting out about it. So,
well, I wouldn't say Antifa doesn't have all those Antifa groups have government support,
right? And I find that the idea that Antifa is anything except somebody's tool.
It's AstroTurf.
Yeah,
there's nothing grassroots there. They bust them in from Ohio to Charlottesville.
Yep.
And they were busting them in from all the way from out west to Virginia when they were setting Richmond on fire. Yeah, this is not an organic grassroots thing.
Yeah,
they've been building this for a long time.
So somebody else hacked Give Send Go, and then this guy is the
some dork is taking credit.
He's the game show host.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's their Max Hedron.
Should I go to Ottawa to cover what's going on there, or not?
Can you? Can you?
If you get across the border,
I believe that if you ask Ezra Levant or one of those guys, I believe if you go or Viva Fry, if you go to Canada specifically to cover that, and they consider what you're doing misinformation, then I think you're in violation of their Emergency Act.
Yeah, they're subject to a queen, but a king, a monarchy. So it's like
you can call him a queen if you want.
Yeah.
I mean, but they're still subject to the queen as well. So it's like they're basically
they're certainly subjects.
Yeah, they're not citizens.
No, they're not citizens. No.
Right. Yeah, that's my point. Yeah, exactly.
I would be very careful. I would just
considering I can't even. Last night I was hanging out with some friends and family I hadn't seen in a while, and we were trying to find a bar, and we just couldn't do it because I was the only one who was like the leopard of the group, and I was like, "Sorry guys," and we almost got to the point where we were like hanging out in a 7-Eleven, And I said to my friends, I was like, if there was just a bathroom here, this would be perfect. And then we just all started laughing at the
Addy,
situation.
Addy, you're living my life for the last year and a half in Los Angeles. Okay, it's like I'm not allowed to go in. I'm not allowed to go in a restaurant without my vaccine passport. I had to quit my gym because I didn't have a vaccine passport. I've had the coof. I've had it. I have natural antibodies. I don't need the jab, but that doesn't count. And so I'm excommunicated from restaurants. I'm excommunicated from gyms. And if the weather is nice, I can go sit outside a restaurant. But that's my life.
I'm picturing this lonely Peter, like just.
I'm not lonely. I've got a beautiful girlfriend, and she makes lovely meals. She's got her crock pot cooking right now.
She's the one taking the picture of you just like looking off into the distance as you sit outside a restaurant.
No, she's usually sitting next to me and she's shivering, but I bought her a down jacket. Because that's what you need to go eat in Los Angeles,
Well, we got into a bar, and then I made the mistake of going and trying to save us a seat. And then some blue-haired waitress was like, this guy looks out of
And
place.
What city were you in?
I was in New York City.
Yeah.
I'm still in New York City, unfortunately.
In the deep blue. Well, in D.C., they got rid of the mandate on vaccine passports, but individual businesses might still do it. So I think our crew is probably just going to hop across the river to Virginia, or you don't have to put up with that shit. Yeah.
Okay.
It's something else, man. Because I was like, okay, we're gonna have like 50 people, so we'll go to some steak restaurant and go, oh, we need vaccines. Sorry, guys. All of us are just gonna get up and fucking leave.
Yeah.
Just like, no, we're not doing papers, please. But give that business to Virginia. I think that's why they got rid of mandates in D.C. because they only had them for a couple weeks, and everyone's like, well, we'll just go to Virginia or Maryland. It's right there.
Right.
Screw you. And all these businesses were losing money. Then they changed the rule. See, it was never about science. It's always been about dollar bill. But when everybody else is going the other direction, DC doubles down on the mandates, and then they came.
And California.
Well, we knew California would do that, but they're going to be the last place to get rid of this crap. Is going to be like San Francisco and LA. Portland maybe. Did you see here about the shootout in Portland yesterday? Antifa were shooting each other.
So here's a weird thing. So I live in one of the wealthy.
We just skip over the Antifa shootout in 3
a second. Okay, so I guess somebody fired a gun and they got trigger happy and they were firing from one building to another at each other. And they're all Antifa. Of course, they called the police, which is fucking hilarious because they were going to an anti-cop rally, right? And so. As soon as the guns start going off, call the police. The police actually showed up for those calls. They don't show up to regular people, but they showed up for that. It's like, 4 injured. I think 2 of them pretty seriously.
I was just laughing at how normalized it's become. There was an Antifa shootout and they shot each other and then called the police. It's like, oh yeah, that's cool. But anyways, it's like a regular.
That's not even. That's like someone got shot in Chicago. It's like, and this corn nuts came up today. Pop.
Well, I was telling Addy earlier, one of the weird. So I live in this enclave of wealth in Los Angeles. I live in a building that was built in 1924, and it's got 8 little apartments. And because of the zoning laws in Los Angeles, they can't knock the building down. So there's no good reason why I should be able to afford to live here. But I got into this apartment, a long time ago, and I've been here for a while. And so I go for a walk every night, or I try to, and I walk around the neighborhood. And they've been knocking down houses. Every 3rd house in my neighborhood, they've knocked down, and they're not only building McMansions, but they're digging double basements. So that house right there is a $6 million house, and over there is a $20 million house. And the $20 million house has a double basement. That is, it's got 2 stories below the ground. And all of the new houses that they're building in my neighborhood have double basements. And I don't know what the elites are up to or what they know that I don't know. But I don't know why they're building bunkers. Because
9 East 71st Street, double basement. 9 East 71st Street, Epstein's townhouse.
yeah.
He's got a double basement there.
Well, they gotta
Alrighty
have
then.
somewhere for the Zoomers to live.
Right. I guess if you're planning on your kids never leaving, it's probably you just build down.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I don't know. I got totally non sequitur there. You were talking about shootouts in Portland, and I'm talking.
Well, it's odd. It's funny again. There were more people shot in Portland yesterday than the entire trucker rally.
There were
You've
more
had
people.
run
There
over
were
with
more
a horse than you
There were
have
more
shooting.
people shot by Mexican cartels than ever got killed in Iraq.
Yeah, oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I want to give
You know,
Okay.
it's like-
great
If you don't include
point,
the
Peter.
Iraqis.
Great point. I try to make that point too. Is like just the black hole, the media black hole that is like the Mexican drug war that is more violent than what's going on in the Middle East. Not that I'm like trivializing that, but I wanted to give a shout out to Viva Fry for not being like one of those big YouTubers who just like sits at home. I was shocked a little bit because then he got out of his house and he went in the cold and he like covered the Ottawa stuff. So I want to give a shout out to Viva Fry.
yeah, and I think he was getting a lot of grief from his family about doing it too, but he felt like he needed to go do it. So
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing because those guys they just never do that. Like once you get to that level, like, you know, I'm not trying to crap on you guys, but
You see this one, the Diagolon flag, which started as a joke. Like, it's the cool parts of Canada and the U.S. Or just like from Alaska, the Midwest, and the South are the anti-COVID groups that made a line. So we made a Diagolon flag. It was mentioned in the House of Commons yesterday as a far-right extremist group
it's a flag.
called the Daglons or whatever. It's just Jeremy McKenzie, myself, like 4 other people. Whatever. It's just like I'm all for secession, you know. Like I support Greater Idaho, all that. But I have a separate site from all my anti-war stuff on Civil War history. So that's like I got a Confederate battle flag right here yesterday, and we were like, yeah, the other secession is going to be Diagolon. It's going to be like Saskatchewan and Alberta, and like the Midwest states and the old Confederacy are just going to leave. And I mean that's not actually going to happen, duh. But they're like they want to overthrow the government through violence, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, secession is like Crimea. There was no violence. They just left.
Right? They voted.
Same way Kentucky and West Virginia were formed. Derps. Anyway. Zigzagalon VV, somebody just said. Yeah, that's the other joke is the cool parts of Asia. If you take the other direction, like an upside down V from Alaska, then you're going to get Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong. Right? We'll keep those. They're the only ones that haven't panicked from the COVID. We don't have any restrictions here. There's no mandates. None of that. A lot of people wear masks, but they were doing that anyway.
Yeah, that's always been kind of an Asian
Yes.
thing. But usually the Asians wear masks when they are sick, right?
Yeah, or just, you know, having a
say
bad
it, Ryan.
day.
Say it.
Yeah.
Say the other thing too. Say the other thing. The other reason.
What's the other reason, Addy?
I forgot. I wanted to say though that I wanted to ask you, Ryan, what was the time elapse between you making that flag and then that getting mentioned? You said in the House of Commons, right?
Well, I didn't make the flag.
Oh, you didn't. Okay.
Jeremy
Who
made
made
the
it?
flag.
Okay,
But
okay.
I've been talking secession forever, right? It's like just like I think DC, New York, San Francisco are unfixable. They're so fucked. Just separation is the only solution. Is like, you're not seeing this shit in Florida or Texas or Mississippi, right? Because it's a completely different culture. And like this ends when you stop complying. And who's stopping it in Canada? Rednecks, right? When you get enough rednecks that just are like, fuck you, I'm not doing that. They can't enforce it. It's impossible. They have to use fear. They have to get, you're going to kill your grandma. That didn't work on Southerners because Hollywood already demonizes us and calls us racist and all this shit anyway. So I was like, well, that's how it is now. What are you going to add, right? So nobody listened to them. And that's kind of the same attitude in Western Canada as working class people, essentially. and Alaska. They're just like, no, we're not doing that. And that's all it takes. Everyone's like, when this is over, I said, this isn't over. This is just how you live. If you comply, it will last forever. Governments are not going to voluntarily give up power.
No.
You have to stop wearing masks, and just like all these high school kids that just went into their school without a mask. They're like, screw you, we're going to suspend everybody? They won't. They can't. They're not going to jail you for not wearing a piece of paper on your face. Just stop doing it. It's that simple. But if you're a Yankee that's scared of your own shadow and the judgment of everybody, whatever, you're going to wear a mask because everyone else is wearing a mask. And I will tell you, 90% of people wearing masks don't want to wear a mask, understand it's junk science, but they don't want to be the one that starts it. They're like, well, other people think I need it, so I'm going to wear it because of that. Well, then you're complying, and they're thinking the same thing about you. They think you want to wear it, and they don't really want to, but they're putting it on too. That it doesn't work. If you change the culture, you don't have to change the politicians. You have to change the public, right? And secession is the way. Look at all these people. So many people moved out of New York and California to the South that California and New York have lost 1 seat each. I think California 2. Texas has picked up 2. Florida 2. North Carolina 1. They've gotten more electoral college votes now from all the Yankees. We could call them COVID refugees because they can't open their business. Their kids can't go to school. They're on remote learning, and which is so unhealthy. So they're moving to areas that don't have that. But Canada didn't have a pressure release, right? There was no Florida to go to in Canada.
Yes.
They're just fucked. So that's why it's gotten to the point that it's gotten to where they're driving their trucks to Ottawa.
Yeah, that's a great point. They didn't have that psychological and just like the release, as you mentioned. And
yeah,
I
was completely fed up. You're like, well, I could go south.
Right.
I could go to South Carolina. I could go to Florida. You could go somewhere that didn't have this. You don't have to live in LA unless your job absolutely ties you there or something. Well, I was there for 3 days. I spent 2 of them in Huntington Beach. I couldn't stand it. Like, I couldn't stand the fact that you had to wear a mask everywhere, and I couldn't stand the fact that so many people fucking just did it. I'm like, what are you doing? I just walked around without a mask everywhere. I went to Venice and y'all saw, man. Like, I wore it in a hotel for like 2 seconds, take it off, as soon as I'm out of the lobby. Sometimes I didn't do that. I just go, no, I'm allergic to stupid, and keep walking. Like, why don't more people do that? Because they've conditioned it out of you. I mean, like, nobody gets ostracized and pounded on more than the redneck, right?
Here's my favorite mask.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it.
I wear this.
Selling mesh condoms.
Yeah, I wear this into the grocery store that I have to wear a mask in, and
I was on the subway yesterday. I was on the 6 again, the 6 line, and the bottom left face here, the bottom mask face. There was a young woman. She's probably my age or a little younger. She walked on and through the glass, she gave me that exact face, that bottom left face there. It was like, she saw that it was exactly the same facial expression because I know it was because I wasn't wearing a mask.
Here's a guy. I was watching one of the live streamers from Canada last night, and this guy just broke my heart. Hang on a second. But this is the...
What's your first name? Where are you Sorry?
Eve.
Eve?
French.
Okay. Where are you from, Eve?
Wembley, Alberta.
Okay, so you're long way away.
Yeah. I didn't come with my truck. I came with my pickup because my truck is too rough. And, I don't know. My wife is not so healthy, so I didn't want to bounce her around all the way here.
Okay, I understand. And what brings you down to the Freedom Convoy? Want to be part of this movement? How has COVID affected your job and your...
It didn't affect my job because I'm a log hauler with my own truck. But the vaccine killed my mother-in-law. My wife had to go and watch her die this summer. And then about a month later, it killed my aunt.
So can you elaborate? I'm sorry to hear that. Really sorry to hear that.
My cousin got his shots, and after the second vaccine, he paralyzed on one side. He ended up in the hospital for a week or 2. Not exactly sure, but I know he couldn't work for six months. And then my brother-in-law, after his second shot, he developed microscopic blood clot, and now he's on blood thinner for the rest of his life. So that's part of the reason why I'm here.
I'm really sorry to hear all that. I'm sorry to. Yeah.
So the vaccine is not made for everyone. Well, first of all, it's not a vaccine.
Okay.
Because a vaccine, you usually get one shot and you're done. Not the second shot and then the booster. How many boosters are we going to get? Like, it doesn't make sense. That's why I'm here. Okay. There you go.
So yeah,
Damn.
he was
He
just
got
a guy.
to say more than you could ever be allowed to say on Twitter or anything without getting erased, right?
Well, this will probably get erased. I mean, put a link to that vid. It's in my Twitter stream, I believe. I think if you go back in my Twitter stream, it's. I
Did you
tweet.
remake a Twitter, Ryan? Or no? Where are you sending people? Are you on Getter or what are you doing now?
No, I got banned on Getter too.
You're
no, I got a
joking.
Wait.
Telegram.
You got banned on Getter?
Oh yeah.
Jesus.
That didn't last even 2 weeks. I mean,
Why don't the Saudis make like a
The
maybe not
Saudis.
the Saudis.
well, they have Twitter.
The Saudis
Kinda
have
on Twitter.
Twitter. Come on.
They
Get
have
with the
Twitter.
program, Addy. Come on.
Like, Truth Social's
I
going to
think
come
you
out. I
know
guarantee
what
you
I'm
get
getting
banned on
at.
that too.
Is
You
it
know,
launched yet?
You
The
can
Truth Social?
shit post and stuff, but when you say stuff that really matters, that really digs at the people in control, you get banned immediately. But when I got banned from Twitter, and then a few hours later, Brunel ends up dead. I was like, wow, this is like I got banned from Patreon the day Glenn got arrested, and it just seems to be coincidental all the time. Somebody asked a question about lard weapons being used on peaceful protesters in Australia. Yeah, I've seen that.
Oh yeah, I did see that too. It was somebody said do some recon by watching
Rat.
Rebel News. Ottawa is under martial law in the videos I've been watching. Oh, this is the same guy over on Rockfin. Rebel News journalist Alexandra Lavoie was hit 3 times with a truncheon and then shot point blank with a tear gas canister in the thigh. Classic Israeli law enforcement training there.
Yeah, and
Chinese Marine Corps.
it hasn't been verified, but there are somebody was showing videos of UN marked planes at the airport there. Somebody else said that the UN always parks their planes there, so it wasn't a big deal. But I saw some other people saying that they didn't know whether or not the people that were being brought in as the shock troops were actually Canadians, which would fit the kind of strategy, which is like you wouldn't if you had martial law in the United States, you wouldn't be using the New York National Guard in New York. You'd be using them in California, right? You'd be using the California National Guard in Arkansas, right? You wouldn't.
Right. Yeah.
So
I just don't see any point in using Getter now. If I have my Twitter actually has a decent reach now. It's like if I'm gonna get banned on both, I might as well get banned on the one that has a bigger reach.
Stay on the one with the eyeballs. Getter's useless. I mean, he really shot himself in the foot there because you have all these Twitter refugees that could have built Getter up, and he immediately started banning people. He banned Fuentes too. I think he deleted a bunch of posts from Reed Coverdale, and I'm like, okay, this is just another one of these, right? I'm not even gonna waste my time.
Yes.
Right.
That's
So
what
I
they're
went
doing.
ahead. I went straight for the jugular because I'm like, let's just see. And I posted about that thing, and right away.
I think they're doing this on purpose. They're creating these truth social medias, and they're just acting as attentional and time sucks, like time black holes. The people who are doing the most important work.
Well, there's seed catalogs, right? Didn't Teal wasn't it announced a couple of days ago that Teal is going to finance a Tinder dating app for conservatives, whatever that means? And I was thinking,
Maybe that's what I need.
To me, it's a honeypot. It's a breeder honeypot, right? Let's go find all of the people
Don't
who
they have one? It's called Grindr.
For conservative.
Yeah, but Grindr is not for
politicians, right?
But Grindr isn't for but but Grindr isn't going to isolate all of the people who are. If your enemy is procreation, okay, then identifying the people who are hyper procreators is going to be a target audience that you want, that will be highly valuable in the future when you're, putting your FEMA camps together or whatever else you're doing.
Right. The 80-20
Well, I
rule.
don't think
Who are the
people
who are the
want
most
sex
valuable?
to procreate, though. They want sex because they want sex. Procreating is like an accident that happens from all the sex.
Yes, I read that recently. Ryan actually was this year. This guy fell on Twitter. He was basically, I don't know if it's a novelty or not, but they discovered this in psychology. There's actually, the drive is to have the intercourse. It's not to produce children. Which
Ryan, did you have your kids by accident? Because
Well,
I did. Because I only have one, but I didn't have her by accident.
2 out of 3 were because it just happened, and I didn't mind. I was like, well, if we have one, we have one. But like, yeah, obviously, my youngest is 1. I'm in my 40s. That wasn't a plan, but I don't believe in abortion, so I believe that should be your choice. But I choose not to do that. So, but it's just a consequence of sex. And here, Japan is like. They don't sell large condoms, so I have to import them. I ran out and ended up with babies. So.
All right. Well, I didn't mean
They
to
confiscated a box of them the other day. I was begging people from the U.S. like, please send me these magnums, and one came through. So I got like 140 something boxes now. I'm good to go. Probably gonna get a vasectomy, but I heard some horror stories about that. So I'm kind of like,
I did that.
I don't know.
I did it.
Sell unvaccinated sperm nowadays.
Yeah. So, you can bank it.
I guess. I don't know.
I'm gonna get into unvaccinated genetic material trafficking.
It's gonna be a valuable commodity one day. Like
it is. It is.
So
yeah.
We got a couple names here for the conservative Tinder. So we got the Right Stuff. Cinder, I guess that's for people 60 and up. Cinder. I don't know if this is a name.
There's already a right-wing Tinder. It's called Going to the Gym.
Right, exactly.
I mean, that is, you go to the gym or the beach. That's where you find conservatives.
True that.
I think Tinder, I guess, is the biggest one. It's like 75% guys, 15% bots, and the rest desperate girls looking for sugar daddies. Like, why? If you're trying to meet,
the sugar daddies,
you're fucked already.
But getting back to the thing that I was talking about earlier, when we were talking about models, there is a sugar daddy app that's called Seeking Arrangements, I think.
Yes,
it's also called Tinder.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Seeking.
Why would a girl you're a girl? All you have to do is go outside, any public place, and pick somebody. That's why the guys are there. You go to any bar, any club, every single fucking guy there did not go there to dance or to drink, whatever. He's looking for women. All you have to do is dress like a slut and go pick somebody. It won't take you 10 minutes. You don't need an app or anything if you're a woman. Unless you're just disgustingly gross, in which case, even if you have an app, it won't matter anyway. Get a diet, whatever.
I don't think it's about
girls control sex, guys control commitment.
I like that. I think I like that. But I don't think it's like the reason they go on it isn't because
it's validation.
Exactly. It's not out of anything practical. Like you said, they could go to the dive bar like 2 blocks away and get a date in 7.5 minutes. Most of them probably.
They could go to a coffee shop
or
anything.
Pathetic.
All they got to do is initiate.
And it's I think that's pathetic, but I mean that's just me. I'm different, I guess.
I'll give a little advice to the guys there: stop chasing girls, chase yourself.
Dude, yes, 100%.
Girls come when you get your shit together, when you get your house and you get a job and you get everything. They will just be there. Quit
this
chasing
is turning
them.
into an intersectional episode.
When I was working at Virgin, there was a kid working for me in the IT department, and one day he came into my office and he was kind of depressed because he didn't have a girlfriend, and he said, what do I really need to do? And I said, go buy a condo. And he said, what? And I said, you're making good money here. I said, go buy a condo. I said, they'll be flocking.
Where was he living? I don't understand. Where's he?
Well, we were living in LA, but he had a pretty good job. He was working for me in the IT. He was an IT administrator at Virgin. He was making good money. You know, it's like, go buy a condo. You'll be
Prove
good.
yourself.
There have been a couple non-PCs.
A girl doesn't give a shit if you're like, I'll do anything for you. That's every other guy. That's nothing to them. Get your shit in order.
Right.
That's what they're looking for.
Indeed.
The
Stay
ones
out of
that
the
are
dive
worth the
bar,
damn
unless
anyway.
you're trying
you
to
know?
save money on beer.
Hey, Addy, I'm gonna have to wrap this up pretty soon. If you and Ryan
Yes.
want to hang out,
I have to go too. Actually, 9 o'clock was my deadline. So hopefully
Oh, all
we
right.
can
I
do it
hope
again
y'all
soon.
try to get to DC.
Yes, I'm gonna
the
be there.
film's gonna be great.
I'm gonna be there.
and you want to pimp that? What's the story?
Yeah. Share it again. What are the deets?
So on March 3rd, 4th, and 5th, I'm going to screen it in DC. I can't say the place because they'll cancel it. So just get there, and if you're on my Telegram, whatever, we'll tell you. We'll be at the Washington Press Club on the 3rd and 4th. So that's where we'll gather. But I'm going to screen it somewhere else because it depends on the size of how many people come. But I've got 2 different A or B locations, and it's going to be a Q&A after the film and super detailed, like Empire Unmasked level details. So, but it's only an hour long, but it is really packed, and it goes over how they got the bomb, and we touch on Kennedy and Epstein and all the things you're not allowed to talk about. So I hope
can't
there's
wait.
no drone strike. I hope there's no drone strike, but not on wood. Yeah, a lot of influencers are going to be there, so you can meet them and some celebrities. So, yeah,
Sweet.
it's something.
Yes.
It's something we wanted to do last year, and nobody could travel, so it's been delayed. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I will be there, Ryan, and I'm gonna plug it on my stuff too, so people, once Ryan gives me the info, if people want to join us, and then Peter is coming too, right?
You should
Probably not. But
just
that's
to
okay.
get.
I don't know.
When
I don't know. I left Washington on January 7th,
You haven't gone back.
2020, and I thought, I don't know if I ever want to come back here. I always
State of the Union's on the 1st, right?
yeah. And how weird is this? The truckers are supposed to be right. I hope everything is okay. The
Well, I'm there
truckers
the next night.
the truckers are planning to get to DC on the day of the State of the Union.
Well, I'll be there the next day. We'll see.
You might
what happens.
you might want to get there early. Go, you know.
And where can people support both of you guys?
Well, I already got the tickets before there was a trucker thing. It's always something for me. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, of course they do it on that day. Mine's my website, ANC, like anti-neocon, ancreport.com. That's got links to Substack, Telegram, Rumble, Odyssey, all the stuff, all the alternatives.
And I'll go find your Substack and I'll hook that up on the Duke Report.
Oh,
And,
awesome.
And
Love
so
it.
that always just pulls whatever the last 2 stories are and puts them
I
on.
got a
there.
new subscription via the Duke Report. I was told today, Peter. So that was pretty cool. I was looking at my analytics. So.
Oh, you did? And
Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Your analytics on Substack?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Because I was trying to figure out, I wanted to put some kind of code on there so that people would know where the traffic was coming from. But I guess it's doing that already.
Yeah, I think it's ingrained on the Substack. But I guess State of the Union is the March 1st. ANCreport.com for all of Ryan's stuff. Please go support. Probably the most censored guy on the internet, certainly in the running for that title. Peter
Hell
Duke
yeah.
Photo. I think PeterDukePhoto.com as well as the Duke Report. Peter Duke Photo on Twitter, on Instagram, and I'm on Buy Me a Coffee and Telegram, Substack, Rockfin as well. If people want to support me there.
All righty.
Great show, guys. Stay frosty, everybody. Thanks to the audience for tuning in, and we'll see.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you,
Good
Ryan.
to see you again, dude.
All right. See you later. Bye.
I'm not coming to LA, but it's good seeing you.
Well, yeah. Somebody might drag me to DC. We'll see. I don't know.